Hey everyone, welcome back. Let's talk about the Camlocks. This is the only set of instructions that Sling gives you as far as doing the install. It's not real helpful when the screw part and the washer part are totally separate pieces and they give you no instructions on how to actually assemble it. I've never worked with these before, so I had no idea. Basically, the problem is that the T portion of the bracket doesn't fit through the washer part, which, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they're supposed to be interlocking. But there's no mention of a tool in the tool kit or anything like that. I Googled around, tried to find something, and finally came up with these. And even Sling Technical was sort of like, well, you just put them together. It's like, well, that's not helpful. So I highly recommend them. They're fairly inexpensive. They make putting these brackets together just easy peasy. They're almost like Cleco pliers, but slightly different. $30 at Amazon. I mean, I get nothing out of it, but hopefully that helps save some folks some time. Anyway, so I was working on getting some of this the instrument panel kind of prepped. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I do things just wildly out of order, and I probably was jumping the gun on covering this because I still had some other things to do. But I knew that I was getting ready to start at least trying to do some of the superfill to fill in some of the rivet holes on the cowling there. But I decided, okay, well, I want to get this oil, or get some of the fuel lines in the firewall forward taken care of, and that included the oil lines. And honestly, it was time to get the oil tank put on and situated. So I got that on. I've got probably a little tiny adjustment that I need to make to it, but right now it's actually in place pretty well. Another thing that I also recommend, and I get nothing out of it, but Lockwood has a quick drain kit for the oil sump itself. It makes oil changes super easy. I think it's like 120, $150 or something like that for the parts. It's two parts because of the way the oil reservoir works. But it basically makes it so rather than having to take the screw out of the bottom, you just put a hose on the bottom of it, you push up, and it locks into place. The oil drains out. You drop the little or drop the screw out of it and pull the hose back off, and you're done. So it saves you the time and hassle from having to take the the bolt out of the bottom of the oil tank, drain it, put it back on, safety wire it again, all that stuff. So anyway, I am going to switch up my. Oh, and this is another part that I if you think all the way through it, it kind of makes sense. So Rotex ships all their planes with. A little bit of oil left over from when the testing was done, and it's in there to help preserve the engine and whatnot. So while doing the fitting, I decided, well, I'll take the lowest bolt off of the oil um, system, and of course, as soon as I took it off, the oil that was remaining in the engine, came out, and there's no easy spot to put anything to catch the oil from that. So I got oil everywhere. I ran over and grabbed a bucket, but by the time I got there, most of it was already out, and then there was no place to put it because it drains pretty much straight onto the wheel from where that's at. So we kind of jury rigged something together, kitty litter on the floor to absorb some of the oil, and I don't know, live and learn. But if you're watching this and you haven't done the engine install yet, just make a note that when you do go to put that oil line in, make sure you got something to catch the oil with. The yellow plastic cover there is where one of that line, the blue line that's right there in front of you, that's where that goes into. And then on the other side here, it's really hard to get in there. And I try to point at it. In fact, I think I've got a little freeze frame here. That is actually on the engine there, that line right there. And it's yeah, that's where it goes. So it's definitely going to be something challenging to get that on there, and especially to torque it correctly. I have no idea. I haven't gotten there yet. Anyway, so I figured, well, I'd get the oil cooler and radiator situated in the cowling. Um, Things are starting to kind of come together, so it feels like I'm close. Um, I also there's some insulation that goes on the cowling itself that helps kind of buffer those two radiators. The tape on this is not great. You know, even though I cleaned the cowling to get it to adhere well, it's sort of stuck. Not certainly not well enough to my liking. Um, Over at Midwest, Adam recommended some of this double stick tape, which, quite frankly, is literally the best stuff ever. Basically, once it's on, it's on. It's probably not going to come off, not without a lot of effort. So I went back through the sections where it really wasn't sticking well, and then I backfilled it with that tape that was that red roll that actually it's sitting on the table there. A little different shot here, just kind of showing you how this works. You put one hole in. I think it's a .4 I'm sorry, 4 millimeter. Might be a 3.5, but oh no, it's a 4. And get the first section in place, test it, make sure it fits. Once that's correct, then you can go back and put the second one in, and then just reverse the process on the other side to make sure that it all fits. You want it to fit on there snug, but not so hard that it's gonna put a lot of pressure on it. And at the same time, you don't want it to be loose either. The other thing is that there's so much weight with these two pieces that taking that section of cowling on and off, I yeah, I tried it. I've got this little bungee cord that I put over the front of the prop shaft there to kind of help hold it in place while I balance the rest of it together. It definitely adds a second hand to this to allow it to get on, because you have to maneuver this around the exhaust tube there, and then kind of hold it in place so that you can get the cam locks put in place. I think when I get this going and the hoses are all connected, it'll be a little bit easier because you can just attach the two radiators and then drop the cowling, and the radiators will stay in place. I've seen a couple of the slings with the cowling off, and I know that they just unclip and then hang there in place. So, I mean, I'm getting there. And I really actually had to put this part on to get a good idea on how to do the I can't remember if it's the oil cooler or the water cooler lines. Might have been the water cooler. So without this on, I mean, it's very difficult to get an idea of how the hoses need to run so that they're not rubbing up against something or interfering with something. So this is just sort of a trial and error, but again, this is a part I'm not super great with, and the instructions are sort of like, well, this is what it looks like when it's done, and not a lot of steps to getting it there. But it's coming along. So what I was working on here was getting the connection hooked up for the front part of the oil line, and it was just tricky. So in this part of the video, I'm putting the exhaust, there's one extra piece of the exhaust that has to go on, and again, there's some direction to it. Basically, I get it situated, drew some lines around it, and then riveted the holes, and then riveted it together, and I used some, I had to dimple the hole and everything like that to get it so that it was sat down in there, because when I go back to backfill it, you don't want those rivets to show. But I wanted a mechanical bond as well as the chemical bond that's going to be there with the superfill. So that was part of what I was working on getting. My intention really was to change the oil lines out for some Teflon lines, but I think I've changed my mind on that. I'm probably going to stick with the rubber lines for that, and just do Teflon for the fuel lines. So, because the oil lines, I've got those mostly together. The fuel lines I was just really struggling with, and I want to put something in that I don't have to go back through and replace in 5 years. So anyway, so that's the video for this round. Stay tuned for next week. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, all that stuff. So if you have any questions, drop me a note. Let me know. Thanks.